The 2022-23 Steam Winter Sale is here, and here are my top picks for strategy, simulation, and city builder games. The kind of games that we play a lot of here on this channel. Hopefully you'll find some absolute gems. And without any further ado, and time cards below, my first entry is Against the Storm. Probably a lesser known entry on the list, but you really should know about it. It's received overwhelmingly positive reviews since its release on Steam last month, November of 2022. It's a strategy simulation game, and it's a dark fantasy city builder where you build not just one, but many. It combines this fantastic roguelike element with city building in a world where, as the Queen's Viceroy, led by humans, beavers, and lizards, and some harpies thrown in the mix as well, we attempt to reclaim the wilderness, to build more cities out from the center to secure a future for our civilization. The way that areas are revealed on the map is super fascinating. Different biomes and effects play out that kind of make sure that each playthrough of Against the Storm is different from the last. And of course, all of the decisions that you make throughout are very rewarding, and the game does a good job at keeping you sort of striving and pushing for more, while keeping each new revealed area different and fresh and maybe challenging. It's a great game, and I'd highly recommend you pick it up at 20% off, a decent discount for a new release. Speaking of new releases, the next one on my list is a fairly quick one, but it's worth mentioning that Anno 1800 is back on Steam after being put there and taken away and put there and taken. I can't keep up. The point is that this is one of the best Anno games. I've had it highly recommended to me many times from you, actually, in the comments below. Do post your recommendations down there. They tend to be really good ones, at least the ones that rise to the top. And Anno 1800 as a city builder, and one of the best ones at that, is a worthwhile mention for this list. If you'd like something a little slower, may I recommend Dorfromantik. Dorfromantik has been up for a few awards, I believe, and for very good reason. This overwhelmingly positively reviewed, peaceful strategy game takes a different pacing from the rest, but don't let the beautiful landscape and the ever-growing village of neat little tiles fool you, because it's also somewhat challenging as well. The min-max element of this game, laid over top of a very peaceful and relaxing world, makes Dorfromantik unlike any other on this list. And if you're interested in historical strategy, I may not need to introduce to you Humankind, but at 50% off, this is one of the best discounts we've seen, especially on Steam. I have a link below. I'm part of the partner program, full disclosure. If you'd like to purchase it, the link is there. But I bring this to you to only mention that this is probably the best discount we've seen. If you're interested in a different kind of historical strategy game, though, you really can't look past this. Civilization 6 Anthology at 86% off. I've mentioned it time and time again, and for good reason. Civilization 6, of course, probably the most popular historical strategy game, at least in the 4X subgenre, and of course it continues to receive updates. The Leader Pass is rolled out as the time of recording, 2 out of 6 of its updates, but either way, we're expecting more leaders, more civilizations, and more content in what is a already 6-year-old game. So check it out at 86% off. You won't regret the Anthology. You also probably won't regret picking up Slay the Spire, another overwhelmingly positive roguelike game, but this time it combines deck building with roguelike elements to create a really fascinating playthrough. Card games and roguelikes join together in this single player experience. You build a deck, you encounter weird creatures, discover relics, and slay the spire. It's fairly straightforward, but the card-based gameplay, fighting the enemies in this round-based combat, it's incredibly fascinating, and as you can see by these wonderful quotes on screen, loads of other people enjoy it too. 66% off. It's only $7. Go try it out. Speaking of go and try it out, there's another tried and true recommendation. Stellaris 75% off, and more, of course. Now, if you're a regular viewer of this channel, you'll know that I'm a reasonable fan of grand strategy and strategy games more broadly, and Stellaris is one of my favorite sci-fi ones. It comes out of Paradox, so you can be sure it's had lots of updates, and will continue to probably receive more paid DLC and expansion packs in future. Stellaris is not alone, though. The grand strategy behemoth that is Paradox has many of its titles on special. Hearts of Iron 4 is another one that may interest you if you're watching this video, but also if you're a regular viewer of my channel. If you're interested in Victoria 3, I should note it is on a 10% discount. Not great, but it's a relatively new release, so what do you expect? Or you could look back in the past, of course. Many titles to choose from. Moving through to something a little different and something a little more Xbox Game Pass, this is Age of Empires 4. And it's 40% off, which I think is the greatest discount we've seen on Steam since its release around a year ago. And it's important to note that there are many Age of Empires titles that you could choose from. Some of the more classic, remastered versions of, say, Age of Empires 2 might, generally speaking, be better games. However, Age of Empires 4 is a really solid entry into the franchise, and the fact that it's the most modern probably makes it one of the more playable editions for many people too. I do recommend Age of Empires 4, and at 40% off if you want to own it on Steam, now seems like a good time. Speaking of a good time, I swear, bear with me, it's Euro Truck Simulator 2, and at 75% off, it's another great deal. This is a really relaxing game. It builds in a nice element of progression, albeit a little slow, customization as well, of course, not just from the truck you're driving, what you're hauling, how it looks, where you store it, you name it. It's actually a really fun game, and in a maybe similar way to Dorfromantik from earlier, it can be kind of relaxing as well to just cruise the highways, get into a parking drama, or start to try and whip and wind your way through a city, or push for greater progression like this, though, and you'll start to find some of the more strategy elements come into play. It is seriously quite a fun game. I'd recommend. I'd also recommend this, City Skylines. We're watching some fantastic DLC footage of the Plaza DLC, which is one of my favorite ones because it gives us extra customizations into these parks and plazas and the wonderful little areas that help make a city feel alive. City Skylines also comes from Paradox, but unlike my earlier mention to Grand Strategy, this is of course a city builder through and through, in case you didn't already pick it up. And I have to say, as far as modern city builders go, City Skylines is probably the best. It has a whole load of content behind it, so much I couldn't bear to even start to try and cover it in this video. From paid DLC expansions to free updates and a very alive and thriving modding scene, City Skylines remains actually one of my favorite games of all time. Moving along from that heavy hitter and into another city builder, it's Timberborne. This one, of course, slightly less realistic, perhaps, than what City Skylines brings into the play, but thankfully, you won't have to deal with traffic anywhere near as much here. Timberborne is a fascinating one where humans are long gone, and in a lumberpunk world where beavers aim to do better. It's a city building game where, of course, as you can see, the people are beavers. Vertical architecture rules, river control, and consequent climate effects like droughts also play a big role here in Timberborne's world. And of course, it's all about that wood. Lots of trees and timber to be born out of it as well. Timberborne is a really fascinating city builder, kind of colony sim. It's an early access title as well, and with survival elements sort of cleverly woven through it, and fairly smooth, fast, and impressive gameplay, it's hard not to recommend Timberborne. Also, at its low price point, 20% off, it brings it down to around $15, $16 US. It's a fun pickup for anybody interested in city builders. And if you're watching this video, especially up until this point, thanks by the way, you're probably interested in it too. And last but not least, this is Rimworld. And my goodness, we're finally seeing a slightly reasonable discount at 20% off. Although, to be fair, this game is fantastic, even at full price. Rimworld is generally regarded as one of the best strategy games of all time, and probably for good reason. It's a colony sim, it's a base builder, it's of course a survival game. It's a sci-fi colony sim, to be specific, and driven by an intelligent AI storyteller. It's all about generating stories, about human psychology, evolution, melee combat and gunplay, or maybe the climate, different biomes and the ecology of the world, or literally what you're building and trading, researching, constructing, you name it. It's a really fun game because of the stories it can tell, and if you're put off a little bit by its art style, I would encourage you not to be. Not only is it relatively smooth, nice to look at, prison architect kind of vibes, another fantastic game that I would also recommend. It's actually a brilliant title. It's exceptionally good. And 20% off, as I mentioned earlier, is the best discount that we've seen for it so far. Is it the sexiest number? No. But it's a pretty good one for a very good game. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.